You ever play a game and just wish the characters felt, actually alive? Not just repeating the same lines over and over, but really thinking, remembering, and living their own lives in that world? Well, let's dive into some incredible research that might just be the start of that future. So take a look at this. This is Smallville. And at first glance, yeah, it looks like a pretty simple retro game. But here's the thing. Every single one of these 25 characters is what's called an autonomous generative agent. They're all powered by a large language model. They're not following some pre-written script. They're genuinely living their day, waking up, making breakfast, going to work, bumping into neighbors, and having a chat, all on their own. And that gets us to the absolute heart of this whole experiment. You know how game characters are usually just robots on a loop, right? They walk the same path, they say the same lines. But what if they could remember a conversation you had with them yesterday and actually bring it up today? What if they could form their own opinions and make their own plans? And boom, this is what happens when they can. What we're looking at here is a Valentine's Day party at the local cafe. And the most incredible part, no programmer, no designer, nobody coded this event. It just happened. And it all started because researchers gave just one agent a single, tiny idea. She wants to throw a party. That one little thought was like lighting a match. The agents just took it from there. The researchers themselves said it best. The agents went around spreading invitations, they made new friends, somebody even asked another agent out on a date for the party, and they all figured out how to show up at the right time. This is a perfect example of what's called emergent social behavior. And it just raises this massive question. How on earth did they do that? Okay, so to really appreciate what a huge leap this is, we first have to understand the old way of doing things, the problem with just following a script. I mean, think about it. Most characters in games, what we call NPCs, are basically puppets on a string. Their programming is their destiny. They can't remember that awesome thing you did an hour ago, they can't come up with a new idea, and they can't ever truly surprise you. And that limitation, well, that's what always kind of shatters the illusion of a living, breathing world, you know? Right, so how do the agents in Smallville cut those strings? Let's pull back the curtain, let's peek inside their digital minds and check out the secret sauce, a brand new kind of AI architecture. So this right here, this is the blueprint. It's called the Generative Agent Architecture. And at its core, it's really just a loop that never stops. An agent sees something in its world, it stores that perception in its memory. Then it thinks about its memories and uses all that to plan its next move. And then that move creates a new perception, and the whole cycle just starts all over again. It's constantly learning. We can actually boil this whole complex process down to 3 key ideas that give these agents that spark of life. First, they remember everything. Second, they reflect on those memories to figure out what they mean. And third, they use that understanding to plan what they're going to do next. So let's dig into each one. All right, first up, the foundation for this entire system, the memory stream. The easiest way to think about it is like a perfect lifelong digital diary. Every single thing the agent sees, does, or hears in a conversation, it all gets recorded as a simple sentence. This stream literally becomes the agent's entire life experience. It's the raw material for who they are. Now, having a diary with 1,000,000 pages is pretty useless if you can't find what you're looking for, right? So when an agent needs to make a decision, it doesn't read its whole life story. Instead, it uses this really clever retrieval system. It looks at every memory and gives it a score based on 3 things: recency, did this just happen? Importance, how big of a deal was this? And relevance, how much does this relate to what's happening right now? The memories with the highest scores, those are the ones that bubble to the top and guide its actions. Okay, this next part, reflection, this is where it gets really cool. This is almost where consciousness starts to creep in. Every so often, the system just looks back at recent memories and asks itself, hey, what are the big takeaways here? It's basically connecting the dots. So it might see a bunch of small memories, Klaus reading a book, Klaus at the library, Klaus talking about his research, and it synthesizes a brand new higher level thought. Klaus is highly dedicated to his research. This is how they build a personality. And finally, all of that remembering and reflecting feeds into planning. The agents start with a broad plan for their day, like I'm going to work on my research project, and then they break it down into smaller and smaller chunks, all the way down to minute-by-minute actions. It gives them a sense of purpose. But, and this is so crucial, they aren't just mindless robots following that plan. If a friend walks up and starts a conversation, the agent can pause its plan, chat for a bit, and then get back to it, just like a real person would. So, okay, the whole system sounds amazing on paper, but does all this complex stuff actually create behavior that we as humans find believable? Well, let's look at how they tested it. I mean, this is the real question, isn't it? It doesn't matter how fancy the code is if the end result doesn't feel alive. Does it actually work? And the results are pretty wild. Researchers had regular people rate the believability of these agents, and the full system, the one with all the bells and whistles, was always rated as way more believable than stripped-down versions that couldn't remember or reflect. But get this. This is the truly mind-blowing part. The AI was even rated as more believable than actual human beings who were trying to roleplay as the character. Let's circle back to that Valentine's party again. This diagram you're seeing isn't a plan. It's a map of what actually happened. You can see the information spreading just like real-world gossip. It starts with Isabella, and then in conversations that were totally unscripted, she tells someone who tells someone else. You can literally trace the path of this idea as it ripples through the entire town. So just how far did this little party idea spread on its own? In just 2 in-game days, a staggering 52% of the entire town had heard about the party. More than half. And I gotta say it again. This all happened without a single line of code telling them to do it. It was a powerful, powerful demonstration of emergent social dynamics. So it's pretty clear that the implications here go way, way beyond just making better video games. So what could this technology actually mean for the future? Well, the possibilities are kind of endless. Imagine being able to create complex social simulations to test out theories about human behavior. Or what about training programs, where you could practice a difficult conversation with an AI that actually remembers what you said last time? Think about smart assistants that don't just follow commands, but actually understand the context of your life. And yeah, of course, this could finally give us game worlds that are never, ever the same twice. And all of that leaves us with one final, pretty mind-bending question. This whole project started with a simple goal: create more believable individuals. But something funny happened. When you give those individuals the power to remember and to reflect and to plan together, they don't just act alone anymore. They start to form a community. So are we just building better puppets for our virtual worlds, or are we actually watching the foundation of a brand new kind of artificial society being built, one block at a time?